Hey, I'm Di Gillett, and this is the Power of Women podcast. We're a platform that showcases and celebrates the strength, resilience, and achievements of women from all walks of life. In each episode, I pose questions to my guests to peel away the layers to reveal the knowledge and wisdom that shapes their narrative. So if you're feeling unseen, unheard, or simply looking for inspiration, then the Power of Women podcast is a great place to join the conversation. Today's guest is a woman who has truly mastered her own power. Those ingredients are resilience, love, the importance of giving back. She's a former Miss Universe Australia, a glass ceiling breaking PR businesswoman, and former long-serving City of Melbourne councillor. She was awarded a Medal of Order of Australia in 2022 for her contribution to the range of charities, and I am incredibly honoured to say today I am joined by Beverley Pinder. Beverley, welcome.
Thank you. Lovely full introduction there.
There you go. Let's start the podcast. Beverley, where did you grow up?
Well, Colonial Ceylon, which is interesting because, you know, it's called Sri Lanka now, but it was Ceylon in those days in my early years, and then we migrated to Australia when I was 13. So Melbourne plays a huge part in my growing up years.
Fantastic. And what were some of the most powerful learnings from your childhood? And that's a deep dive, I know.
Yes. Well, you know, obviously there's a big background there. One of the key things is that there was domestic violence, and it was very sad and painful to hear my father bashing my mother, I think it was only I have four brothers, so I think it was only my second brother and I who were kind of closest to my father. We loved him so much. And yet this violence was, you know, gosh, right through. When he used to be away, he used to drive trains, so he'd come home every 4 to 5 weeks or something like that. And invariably he was drunk.
I was going to say what fueled it.
He was drunk, but he also never had money. Now, I always think that I'm somewhat like my father in that...
or nothing like your father.
Yeah, or nothing. He was very giving, very generous, and had the Irish genes and was a big drinker. But apparently that was very much the case for men and who drove trains in Ceylon at the time. So that was one
Hopefully not whilst driving, but it probably was.
Never.
Okay.
Never. He was always safety first of his people he was carrying from one town to the next. But I guess that kind of trauma that I faced really helped shape me. The other thing was going to a Catholic school from the age of 5 to 12, surrounded by Tamils, Muslims, Buddhists.
What a rich melting pot.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Parsis. And in fact, I connected with one of my Parsi friends after 57 years last week in
because you were back in Sri Lanka.
A book, yeah. And I remember saying to Fazana, get those white pyjamas off and let's play netball. But in fun, you know, and she loved me. We just got on so well together.
Yeah.
And that was her kind of little bit of levity as well, you know. So that was another huge takeout for me, because that, to me, was the melting pot that gave me this amazing richness of ability to understand people and work with people and help people, you know. That was the most important thing, you know.
And that's been defining throughout your life.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the powerful learnings didn't stop there. There were many happenings as a teenager that shaped you, and I know some of those will transition from Ceylon to Australia. Tell us about some of those events.
Well, you know, first, of course, we battled the White Australia policy to come to Australia, which which was a breeze for us because we did have the right percentage of white blood. But you know what, Di? With all this conversation that's going on right now, I didn't hold that against Australia. That was the times there was an opportunity. I said, I'm going to go for it. And that was. I remember so distinctly standing up on that BOAC flight, descending the stairs at Essendon Airport, and I looked up and I saw this big blue sky.
You remember arriving? How old?
Yes.
How old
I was
were you?
13 at that time.
Okay, of course you'd remember.
Yeah, and red A-line dress, patent leather shoes, freezing cold.
You're like me. You remember events by what you were wearing.
Absolutely, and little white socks. And all we brought were pillows. That's all we had. We didn't have money, so we, and I looked up and I thought, you know what? I'm going to make it here. That's exactly what I said. I'm going to make it here.
And you have.
Because it was cloistered. It was I guess, I can't even find a word for it right now in Ceylon. I had no opportunity. I was a female, 4 brothers. Females were really... you were going to be a
bottom
stenographer.
Of the pecking order.
Absolutely. A stenographer or get married and have children.
Yep.
Yeah? So, but that was what I rebelled against as well. So when Mum took me to Elwood High to sign me up, the girl on the front desk said, which lessons, which class do we put her in? Oh, stenography and typing.
And
I looked at Mum and I said, no.
Yeah.
I was a smart kid. So we changed
and
that.
been ingrained in your mother to think that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, that got changed pretty quickly, and I got into maths and everything else, maths and science, and had the best 3.5 years of my life at Elwood High. Unbelievable, with all my Jewish friends, whom I'm still great mates with.
Oh,
I love them all.
Yeah.
And they never asked me where I was from. Never.
They didn't see colour or they didn't see difference?
Didn't see any difference at all. I think the most important difference or the most impactful difference would have been my accent.
Yes.
At the time, Yeah. Although I did take elocution classes and I didn't speak Sinhalese. I studied it, but I was good in the grammar and writing, but I didn't actually...
So you were fluent in English on arrival?
Well, my mother tongue, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That was a great advantage, Di.
Yeah.
A huge advantage.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So what were some of those events? I know, and I've got a copy of your book here, Beverley, Pride Without Prejudice, and I know there's lots of detail in there. But can you share some of it? Because I know that you then left Elwood High, and you ended up at... Was it Springvale?
Springvale High, because my parents did what every migrant family wants to do, and that's to own a home.
And they couldn't afford in Elwood, so you moved further out.
$14,500 in Springvale in 672 or whatever.
Yeah.
So you couldn't blame them for it,
No.
And that was the death of me. That really
changed your life for the negative.
Changed me, not just to the negative, but also because I had kids who just didn't understand. They didn't ask the questions.
So it was racism?
It was racism for the first time ever. But bigger than that, I found friendship in a Greek girl who's still my friend today, and I helped her along. She was a daughter of very hard-working Greek migrants who rang the local bakery, for God's sake. Kids were going there at lunchtime and buying the food, and yet they were, calling her a wog and demonizing her virtually, So we became great mates. I then Form 5 and 6 at Springvale High, and all I could do was really self-harm.
That was what the stresses, that was the toll of the stresses.
So I self-harmed to...
There was no one to talk to? Nobody understood it?
No.
So that's
Mum was so busy working night shift at Coles, GJ Coles, and then later Myer. She was such a hard-working person.
Yeah.
And I didn't think, and I was cooking. I cooked all the meals from the age of 13 and looked after my brothers and my dad. And there was no way. My second brother was always my soulmate, but he too was studying. He wanted to be a doctor, so I didn't want to burden him with my
So
sadness.
how long did you carry this burden and turn inward?
It was 2 years. 2 years. I failed matric. I went from being an A student, from
That's
2A,
how
3A,
impactful
4A.
the move was.
Absolutely, just failed. I failed English die. My mother tongue and something that I really pride myself on. So I failed English. I passed economics, which was pretty good, I guess, but that was it. But there was another thing. I didn't want to go to university with these kids.
So you sabotaged, yeah.
And that's what our kids do. We got to watch out for those signals,
Yeah.
It was so easy to just say, nope, I don't choose to go to uni with them. I wanted to be a primary school teacher. So easy to fail. But then I thought, I failed, that's okay. Went out and looked for jobs. 5 jobs I got.
5 jobs.
4 banks and 3 banks, the MMBW and the public service. And I thought,
There you go.
But what was driving me was this White Australia policy. I wanted to know more about migration in the 60s and how decisions were made, how thick the files were.
So you didn't fail matric because you didn't have the intellect. You failed matric because the environment was so god-awful.
Correct. Yeah. And that's what my fear is now with what's being created. Let's not create environments to fester this and foster it. This is not Australia.
Yeah.
This is not Australians. Australia is not a racist country, I say. Yeah. And if there is racism, they're idiots. Get on your path and really try hard to take others along the path with you. But slanty eyes, coloured skin, that's character. That's what we're all.
That's the global melting pot that we love.
Exactly. I mean, as I said, when I was back in Sri Lanka last week, being photographed with black, blue, brindle, visiting my old neighbours. Now, they were so good to my mum. At times Mum couldn't pay the rent. It was a Muslim lady. And the lady would say, no, that's okay. When your husband comes back with the next pay packet, you pay.
Wow.
So I visit them every time I go to Sri Lanka. She's since passed.
That.
She passed last year. But the children are there and they love the fact that I always remember them. I'm so loyal to them, because that's what you do. You pay back. You pay back
beautiful.
in kindness and your love and care for people. It doesn't always have to be money.
Yeah.
But time is a huge thing that
time
you can
and
give
compassion.
back. Correct, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's so much for Father Bob, really. I mean, Father Bob was the one who...
He was an influential character in your life. Tell us about that.
Very much so, yeah. I loved him. He was my spiritual advisor. And known him for 40-odd years. And I would front up on a Sunday morning, and I'd say, Father, I got some money in my bag. And he'd say, Mother? I said, okay, now where do you want it? In your bank account or in your top pocket? He says, what do you want for it? Good question.
Good question.
In other words, did I want a tax deduction for it?
I
said, no, Father. This is not about tax deductions.
A very commercially astute priest.
Very, absolutely. Had to be.
Yeah.
So I'd pop it in his top pocket and I'd know that he'd go change it and then distribute $5,
out to somebody in need
as they needed. Who are we to say? If someone wants a cigarette that day, that's okay. So Father's teachings were brilliant. He was very accepting of my autistic stepson. Andre, I'd take Andre, not every Sunday, but, now and then.
Yeah.
And they'd have conversations.
He could converse with anyone. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Father Bob I want to start a campaign to make him a saint. I don't know how to do it yet, but I will.
I know you will. If anyone can find a way to do it, you will.
We'll find the way.
Yeah.
It'll take several years, obviously, but we'll and maybe Mary MacKillop people might help me. But I think he needs to be a saint. Yeah.
And you were on the board too?
No, I was never on the board.
You weren't on the board?
Never on the board.
Okay.
During COVID, I actually filled out a form and I thought, they invited me to fill out a form. Did. No response whatsoever. typical board, 3 pasty, dare I say it, I hate saying this, white men, okay? But you know what, Di? I had a great relationship with Father.
Yeah,
and
you didn't need to be on the board.
Above anything else.
Yeah.
You know, what Father did and what Father said. And he always said he was an outsider, but he had to be on the inside.
To get things done.
You know, and that's a really good one, you know. And I think I've always been an outsider as well.
Yeah.
You know, not because of the colour of my skin, but more because I'm comfortable on the outside. But you tell me what you need and I'll penetrate and get into the inside and work it for you.
But you've got a clearer view from the outside.
That's exactly right. Absolutely,
Yeah. Yeah. You, despite a lot of the disadvantages you had as a child early on, you had some pretty powerful affirming words ringing in your ears. What were they?
Well, my mum always said that when I was delivered, the doctor smacked my little bottom and turned me around to my mum and said, "She'll be a princess one day."
And you were crowned.
Yeah, but Di, you know, I didn't enter beauty competitions because I thought I was beautiful. So the very first competition I entered because Harold Blair, the Aboriginal activist, opera singer, whole amazing man, he launched the Aboriginal Holiday Project for students. So for Aboriginal kids to go and have holidays during the summer. I thought, you know what, 13 years of age, I'm going to raise money for this. This sounds like a great idea because my holidays were great. I spent holidays with my rich auntie. Okay? And I was very lucky. I had a rich auntie and a very giving uncle and an amazing grand uncle who kept us for 18 months couch surfing.
Oh, wow.
All right? So those are the added things that shaped me. So when this TV was new to us, when I saw Harold Blair on TV, I thought, I'm going to raise money. You know, I'd buy wagon wheels for 30 cents and sell them for about 40 cents at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Can remember wagon wheels.
Absolutely. So I fronted up at Dallas Brooks Hall with my money, and the lady on the front counter said, "What's your name?" I said, "Oh, Beverley De Silva, Mrs. Snedden." She said, "You know my name?" I said, "Yes, I do."
It's an important political name.
Your husband is the immigration minister. And she said, "Your name's not here." I said, "Oh, Mrs. Snedden, I've brought my money. It's in the charity." She said, "No, you've got to be in the beauty as well." And she put my name down in the beauty section. And that's what started a whole kind of, you know, I guess various phases of entering these competitions and winning lots of nice prizes for my brothers.
For your brothers. Surely tell me you kept something.
But above all, was acceptance was what I was after.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted people to look at me.
Well, that's very public acceptance.
Yes. And say, wow, this young girl, look at what she's done. She's raised money. She's done this. She's won this competition. And it was kind of like an acknowledgement. And really, I guess...
How did it make you feel?
I wanted more, not of it. I wanted more from it.
From it.
Yeah? Because I was wanting to get into business. That was what I didn't know what sort of business. I'd failed matric, so I had no idea, you know. And I was working at immigration. And
but you had a curiosity.
I had a huge curiosity.
Yeah.
And amazing creativity.
Yep.
And that was picked up by Alan Chipp when Dame Phyllis Frost invited me to raise money to build a new wing at the Maroondah Hospital. And she asked me to stage a beauty competition. I met Alan Chipp, who was running professional public relations, and he offered me a job. And I said, "What is PR?" I rang someone up and they said, "What you've been doing for yourself since you were 15.
There you are.
So I said
Born
yes.
for it.
Yeah, and that's how the PR career started. And once I'd won that Miss Universe Australia competition, it put paid to naysayers. But can I say, a lot of naysayers from the Ceylonese community as well.
Isn't it interesting where it comes from?
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, so you want to be Australian, do you? Of course I want to be Australian. This is the country that's given us all this opportunity. This is amazing.
Proud Australian.
Proud, very proud Australian, So there were some challenges there that I had to face. But in doing so, I put my head down and tail up with my PR. I had great clients, Stephen Datner, Tupperware, some amazing clients,
big brands.
And latterly, in the 90s, Solomon Lew,
yes,
which was only for a brief period. There was a specific job that I had to do for him, and that was really build trust between him and the media. Easy. I said, the only way I can do that, Solly, is to use the trust that the media have in me to let that seep into you and their relationship. And that's what we did. And from that day onwards, Solly actually started acknowledging media and trusting. You don't need to trust too many, just 2 or 3 good journos. Yeah, and you know that they'll write what you say and interpret correctly. And that's been the power of my PR career as well, in understanding people and clients, understanding the media, and never ever wanting just for the sake of the client or the product or the individual, whatever, wanting both parties to gain.
You've had this giving aspect in every part of your life. It permeates through all sectors that you delve into.
Yeah, I wanted to be a nun when I was little in St. Lawrence's convent. But obviously, migrating changed
Put
things.
Put
paid to that. And I wanted to go to Catholic school here, but Mum couldn't afford it. So Elwood High, that was the best decision she ever made. But I don't know, sometimes I think, when you can go either way. When you've had so much trauma in your life, you can carry it.
Or you can harness it.
Or you can harness. You can find, if you carry it, then you start finding excuses. And I slap people around the chops now. I say, no, get out of it. Just no. That's not the way to do it.
So you've really attuned into power. What's your superpower?
I think my superpower is that I love people and the energy that I get from helping people. Yeah. So helping people boosts my energy, boosts their energy and their desire to succeed, and that is a huge component of my power. Yeah. If I want to call it power, I've never really used that word, but I love the podcast.
Well, we're calling it power for a reason.
Absolutely, it is the power of women because God only knows there are some women who don't like other women being in power. We'll get to that. Yeah. So no, I think each and every one of us has something deep inside of us, and I think it's having people, your mentors, your champions, help you bring that out, help you use that as your platform. And I had some great men.
You had male men. You had plenty of male mentors.
Plenty of champions, plenty of mentors and champions, males. They were my clients in the main, but they could see that I was, resilient. I would not stop at anything to get the job done.
Yeah, there's a fierceness.
Absolutely, yeah. And in doing so, there's some powerful men. Tony DeLoisier, who was the head of ASIC, head of Mallison Stephen Jakes, my law firm client whom I had for 20 years. And, no PR person has ever had a law firm client for 20 years, the leading law firm in the country. Tony later became the head of ASIC. He's still a mate.
Yeah. Speaks to the relationships that you forged.
Absolutely. Still believes in me, and I went to his 70th just the other day. So it's I think power is not to be not for you to run away from. I think you need to really kind of feel that it's coming your way or that you're exuding it.
But don't abuse it.
Don't abuse. Find that sweet spot where it comes and it comes from someone else, goes from you or wherever, whatever the words are, and just get that nexus and just work that beautifully. But never forget to take younger people along with you.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. That is powerful. So coming up, amongst other things, we're going to talk about women supporting women. So Beverley, in your experience, do women support women?
I'd love that to be a resounding yes. But no.
It's a no.
Yeah, it's a no from me. But I think we can work on this. You know, if each and every one of us who gets to wherever they want to be in life thinks about how they can actually spread that love, spread that knowledge, and garner that strength and power to actually support younger women.
But why is it that women? I mean, we're calling out for equality and recognition. So why is it that? And I mean, I would agree in some respects. I've certainly had plenty of examples along my journey where women have been my adversities, not my supporters. Why is it?
I think it's about us not wanting it all about ourselves. Okay? Once the self and the ego runs you and it ruins you. Okay? It runs, but there's the I in there.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It ruins. Women need to cultivate confidence no matter what they attain, no matter what they achieve in this life, believing that they can abut all of that with energy and power to spread it out. Spread it out. Because it comes back, Di.
Of course it does.
You know,
comes back threefold.
Absolutely. I mean, in 2014, I did a speech. Robert Doyle asked me to do a speech just before the Australia Day citizenship ceremony. He said, Beverley, it's 60 years of Australian citizenship. I'd like you to say a few words, your own words, after you've read Scott Morrison's words. And I did say then, very briefly, over a minute and a half, Australia gives you tenfold for that which you give it. Okay? Similarly, women who succeed, you can get 10, 20-fold back by nurturing and taking others with you. This would be a far better world to live in if we can have that almost as a ritual. I have rituals. You know, I know what I have to do, but then I also remind myself that, you know, my Nepalese international student needs some coaching. So I put that aside for now. And what is it that you need?
Spend time giving back.
Spend time. But spend time also, sufficient time to be able to know what to do before it has to be done with these young people. So it's front foot stuff. That's what I'm saying. Because we can all sit back and say, oh, we'll wait till they come to us. No. You've got to be on the front foot and really quite serious about wanting to help people. Leading, mentoring, celebrating is so important. Celebrating, stopping to celebrate, and showing others how to celebrate as well.
And these are the basic tenets that you subscribe to.
Tenets.
Yeah.
And above all, community. Once you've done all of that, look around and see where and how one can help community. It's almost a Jewish way of thinking about life, I think. You know.
And I wonder, do you think had you not had an immigrant story and an immigrant's journey, do you think all of these things would have been as deeply and highly attuned in you as they are?
I think if I was still back in Sri Lanka, you should have seen me last week, taking others along with me.
So it's embedded in you, ingrained in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even those who, you know, who are feeling a little bit lacking in confidence because of the English language and all of that, I gave them tips and ideas. I went to this amazing man, Kushil Gunasekara, who gave his family villa, pre-tsunami. He turned the family villa into a village heartbeat and invited the villagers to come, to study, to dance, just to chat, play a bit of cricket with Murali. This has turned into 20 village The tsunami happens, villas wiped out, he rebuilds.
But better.
20 village heartbeats now around rural Sri Lanka. I mean, this is what we need to be doing here. Let's not go beyond our community. Let's look at our local community. Let's see where and how. And I've joined the country.
We don't need to be giving all of this money to another cause across the ocean.
No, exactly. I mean, let's look at where we are right here. And this is a very needy area that we live in.
And some of the causes we've been giving money to are highly questionable anyway.
Well, this is the other thing. You've got to be so careful whom you give to.
Yeah.
And I'm very strict with my giving. And in fact, I pledged to St. Lawrence's Convent in Colombo that I'll support 3 girls, for 6 years for each of them, 6 years of their education. Okay.
You are wonderful.
And that comes to, I haven't told my husband this, and when he listens to this, he's going to say, "Did you really?" I said, yeah. But you know what, Dad? It's my money.
Yeah.
I earned it the hard way, and I want to give it out.
Aren't you fantastic?
So $7,000 will probably be the bottom line, and a little bit more maybe.
And that will go a long way.
But I've said to them, no, don't push me. I'm going to do an agreement. You need to know what you have to do with this arrangement, and I will tell you what I will keep doing, including some Zoom sessions with the girls. So we build a whole program there.
Fantastic, yeah.
And that's one little community. Now, I'm hoping to imbue those girls with a sense of giving, even though they don't have a lot.
And they will pay that forward in their lifetime.
Correct.
So there's another facet of life that you wanted to comment on, that is B-word.
B-word, bullying.
Bullying. Have you experienced it?
I think there's a lot of it that goes on. I think politics is a hotbed.
We keep hearing stories out of Canberra and closer to home of
and
that.
I'm not talking about men bullying women. I'm talking about women bullying women.
Back to this point of women not supporting women.
Exactly.
It is astounding.
Yeah. And, you know, when you have a situation where you're on an even keel, but there's a subordinate role and a more hierarchical role. If the roles were reversed, I would lead by showing that, love your ideas, great, let's work together.
So if I unpack that, you're suggesting the more senior the female, the more likely they are to bully? Is that what you're saying?
And not senior in years. I'm not talking about years.
Purely in rank.
Rank. Yeah? So it's almost like the epaulets you would wear.
So what is that? Is it insecurity or?
In politics, it's very simple, straightforward. It's how do I preserve my next term? Yeah? How do I get back? I'm going to lay the groundwork.
Simple and ugly.
Very ugly. Very ugly. And one of the key things about me when I was in politics is that I wanted everyone in. I wanted everyone to be part of it, you know, and be very mindful of the men and the women.
Yeah, but that grated up against some people's views because they were all about self-preservation.
Self-preservation. And you see it now. I mean, you see it playing out now, you know. So, but I think bullying enters your realm. And if you're not strong enough and powerful enough, okay, to say, no, this is out of character.
Unacceptable
to me and my values. And if you don't do that, and you've got to actually actually physically do that. You've got to actually say it to yourself as well.
But you had it in childhood, so you had it happen to you at Springvale High, and I went to an all-girls private school, and there was certainly in the early years there was bullying, and I had supporting parents who gave me the confidence to go, this is crap, it's not happening on my watch, and push back against it. You did the same, and I think having in both our cases, having had that rear its ugly head in childhood has ironically given us the tools and the insight to deal with it as adults.
And I'd say strength, because it takes strength.
It does.
And a bit of courage.
Yep.
To look you in the eye and say no.
Not taking it.
No. And it may be the hierarchy. It may be that I have to play ball. At the end of the day, though, I know I've got a role. I will play that role to the very best of my ability and beyond, as I always do. And if you want a part of that action, then you go and take it from me.
Yep. Yeah. So what do you hope to see in the future of women in leadership?
I just say something about the celebration that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
One of the first things I did when my book came out was I got a hardcover copy and I wrote a congratulatory message to myself.
Oh, well done you.
It's sitting there on my mantelpiece. And, tapping someone on the shoulder and saying, well done.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
But that comes naturally to you. I mean, you've extended the same gratitude and giving toward what I'm doing. It's innate in your character.
But how do we? I want a recipe for that. I want to try and get that happening.
Put on that PR head of yours and work out how to build a campaign around it.
Well, I think we've got to lead. We've got to, as women, we've got to lead. We've got to empower other women. There's no doubt about it.
I agree.
Okay, we've got to find at least 20 women in our lifetime whom we can mentor. Because those 20 will go out and mentor another 20 or more.
Yeah.
Then it just expands, okay? We're going to have 160 or 180,000 by the year 2030, 2040, or whatever it is. Okay, so all these UN International Women's Day campaigns, I mean, they're all
a lot
good,
of them are soulless, though.
But they're soulless. Be constructive. Show us how we do this. Step out of your skin. And you know what, Di? Each and every one of my friends can find someone, 2 or 3 people, just so easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
And hopefully that's what Power of Women does in spreading the word, and the storytelling is the opportunity for people to relate to somebody else's experience and possibly take from that and pass it on.
I think this is so important what you're doing. Really, really important. Because the power of women podcast is a superpower. Now, how do you make this something that, I don't know, there's something here that we could probably do once I think it through, because, you can have International Women's Day celebrations and lunches and breakfasts and all of that, but if we're not charging forward with a single aim to take other young women along with us, then we may as well just go back and just have breakfast at Rotary or wherever and do it that way.
Well, offline we might have a more detailed discussion about that, Beverley. So thank you. One of my closing questions that I would love to know from you is, what is a phrase that defines you?
I guess Father Bob in his foreword in his book called me as tough as old boots. I'd only take it from Father, by the way.
That's a phrase.
I know.
Yeah.
But I guess I was tough enough to survive and thrive.
Yeah.
In a man's world, in business, in a man's world, really.
Absolutely.
But I'm caring enough to help others to do the same.
In spades.
Yes.
In spades. Congratulations. It's an inspirational story, and I know there's more that if a podcast listener is looking Pride Without Prejudice, an inspiring life, and it truly is an inspiring life. So Beverley, thank you so much for joining me on The Power of Women today.
Thank you, Di, for the opportunity.
Yeah. I would love it if you could also help share the power to follow, subscribe, and share the podcast within your network. Engage with me on LinkedIn or Instagram, or connect with me directly on my website, powerofwomen.com.au. Until next time.